From KUNC and the NPR network, this is In the NoCo, a daily slice of Northern Colorado news and happenings. It's Wednesday, April 24th. I'm Erin O'Toole. Anxiety about climate change is hitting the youngest of us hard. And if you're too young to vote, it may feel like there's nothing you can do to change what your future looks like. Today, we're going to learn why that's not necessarily the case by talking with two Fairview High School students, and identical twins at that, who were at the forefront of leading change in their school district.
We have our whole lives in front of us, but a lot of times, the things that we want to do and our dreams are being destroyed by this issue that is devastating so many different aspects of our lives.
That's Emma Weber. She, along with her sister Molly, campaigned with other students in the Boulder Valley School District to get the school board to adopt a climate resolution. And it worked. Boulder Valley is the first school district in the nation to adopt a climate resolution called the Green New Deal for Schools. Emma and Molly were empowered to take action after attending a summer camp program put on by the Sunrise Movement, a climate activist organization led by young people. Molly, when did climate change become an issue that was important to you?
I remember always knowing about climate change, but it didn't really seem like that pressing or that big of a deal, in large in part due to my education, I think, which framed it as this future issue that was about polar bears and melting glaciers and not actually about me and my life, my future and my community.
Yeah. And Emma, does that kind of reflect your experience too?
But I specifically remember the NCAR fire and being evacuated and driving home from visiting my grandparents when my friend called me and she told me there was a fire, and just being really scared about not knowing whether my home was going to be there when I got back. And I just remember having a moment in that car telling myself that I needed to really do something about this because it wasn't fair that this was happening so often, and especially that it was when it did happen, students and young people were unprepared because a lot of times we're not taught what to do.
Well, to that end, last summer, you and some of your peers attended a summer camp put on by the Sunrise Movement, which is made up of young people across the country who are organizing to promote climate action. What was that experience like? And I mean, I'm so impressed by what you both have been able to accomplish in terms of lobbying the school board and persuading the adults who make the decisions. Is that something you learned about in the summer camp? Emma, do you want to jump in first?
Yeah, so certainly that was part of what we did at the Sunrise Camp and at other trainings that Sunrise has put on is we were taught how to run a campaign. As far as speaking at school board meetings, that definitely is not something I would have wanted to do before. Public speaking used to terrify me, but I got really comfortable with it and learned to actually kind of enjoy it because it was this is a space where I can communicate my needs to the people who are in charge, who should be listening to me, and it's their job to listen to students. Campaigning and also specifically going to school board meetings went from something that felt kind of scary and uncomfortable to something that was actually really empowering.
And how about you, Molly?
Yeah, it was a really incredible experience for me just to be connected with so many young people from across the country that were all concerned about the climate crisis I was, and it was a really big variety of people there, from where they were from and what their family was and race and class demographics were diverse, and I think being able to connect among all of us and hear so many different stories that were all unique.
Emma, I'm wondering if you feel you got everything that you all were advocating for.
Yeah, there were definitely things that we asked for that weren't implemented in the resolution, which I think is how this kind of thing usually works. You don't usually get everything that you ask for passed. Specifically, as far as the sustainable infrastructure, we wanted them to commit to, I guess, just stronger plans as far as transitioning to net zero energy faster. But that was something that they weren't willing to put in the resolution because of how expensive it is. And so that's something that we're continuing to work with the district to implement. And there is a lot of federal funding to do that sort of thing. So even though something getting a bunch of solar panels and electric buses is very expensive, we also have federal funding, and the alternative of not doing it is much more expensive when we look at the cost of the climate crisis.
You make an excellent point with that. Well, I would love to put this to both of you. What advice do you have for your friends, your peers who are maybe feeling inspired to be activists in the climate crisis, but might also feel like it's not their place or they're too young? What do you say to them? And Molly, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I'd say that you're never like too young to be involved in organizing and like to stand up for what really matters to you and what's important and what you deserve.
And Emma, how about you?
Yeah, I guess the first thing I would say, kind of similar to Molly's, I think there's this misunderstanding that young people like can't make change just because it's like only 16 years old and I can't vote. But in reality, when we look at like most historical movements and the times that our country or the world like went through really big change, a lot of times young people were at the forefront of those movements, and I think that's because as young people we have like a special and unique perspective on issues, and also we hold like a certain power, and so I think it's important to understand that just because we're young or we can't vote yet or maybe don't have a job yet, that absolutely doesn't mean that we're not capable of like creating really big change. And so, yeah, I guess the first thing I would say is just to have confidence in yourself and know that, like you do hold a lot of power.
Is there something you would like adults to know about your activism and work? Or maybe what would you like to see from adults on the climate crisis?
I think I'd want them to know that this is a really important issue for everyone, but especially young people, and that we'll stop at nothing to create the future that we all deserve. I guess like for the people in power, like are making decisions in terms of policy to make like the transformative change that we need to see.
And how about you, Emma? Any messages for the adults?
Yeah, I think I would say something that I think gets lost sometimes in our education around the climate crisis is how interconnected it is with other issues. So since the climate crisis disproportionately impacts communities of color and low-income communities, it not only is like an issue in itself, but it also amplifies these other pre-existing issues. We also see like climate change tied to like increases in poverty and domestic violence, and it's like so interconnected with like food insecurity, housing insecurity, just all of these other issues that already exist are tied to the climate crisis. And so by ignoring climate change or not addressing it on the level that we need to, not only are we letting climate change get worse, but we're also letting all of these other really big issues get worse. And so I would like adults to like really consider that and take it seriously.
That was Fairview High School students Emma and Molly Weber. Their advocacy led to Boulder Valley becoming the first school district in the nation to adopt the Green New Deal for schools. They're part of a growing chorus of young people calling for action on the climate crisis. In January, we spoke with 12-year-old eco-activist Madhvi Chatur, who played a big role in legislation to ban styrofoam takeout containers in Colorado. We'll have a link to that conversation in our show notes and at kunc.org. That's it for us today here on In the NoCo. We'll be back tomorrow with more of what's happening for Earth Week across northern Colorado. Our producer is Ariel Lavery. I'm Erin O'Toole. We'll see you next time.